So good morning, everyone. We are here in Kobe, in Japan. Welcome to the meeting of the Internet Society Board of Trustees number 143. So we have today a quite packed agenda, but I think we will cover everything. Before we basically start, just saying that the structure of the agenda has been, I mean, we have changed it a bit to accommodate, remote presenters because, it was kind of like, strange time zones at their end. So I basically, chose to change the structure. So it's not basically the best structure or the structure I had in mind when we were putting together the agenda with Kevin. But I think it will be good because I don't think it's fair to make people wake up at very strange hours just to give a report or something. So bear with us. But I think we have a good agenda and we will cover all the topics and we will try to basically, create the flow between the topics as we go. So just, starting with point number one, as usual, we didn't get any apologies. So we have all the trustees here, which is great. And then any declaration of conflict, considering the agenda. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Hiroshi. Okay, good. So then moving on to point number two, which is to document. Oh, Desiree, yes, sorry.
Yes, I'd like to recuse myself from any discussions with regards to PIR.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Desiree. Yeah, tomorrow we will have a meeting with their board actually, so we will indeed have some discussions. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm moving on to point number two. As you know, we usually approve a few resolutions between board meetings by e-vote per our new rules, basically. So, John, you want to comment on the resolution we passed since last meeting?
Well, we passed, I believe, 5 resolutions since by e-vote. Since all the trustees have voted for all of them, I'm not going to explain to you what you already voted for, but this simply puts them in the minutes.
Yeah, and there's no resolution required because we already passed them. So people agreed that the e-vote was binding. So that's perfect. Okay, so moving on to point number 3, we had some amendments to the ISOC bylaws, which is basically to capture in the bylaws what we actually do. So they are, in that sense, they are minor, but being changes in the bylaws, they are always important. So we chose to have a separate resolution to do that. So John, do you want to introduce that?
Yeah. Yeah, these were a bunch of essentially clerical changes that we all discussed late last year. I think the most useful one is the one that does not require us to have a North Korean style election for Andrew every year. Well, one candidate and then we get 100% turnout. Yeah, and so anyway, I believe everybody's already seen these, and last I heard everybody was okay with them. So unless there are questions on them, I would move that we approve the amendments as presented.
Okay.
Can I just ask,
yeah.
Before the, how come I didn't get the North Korean title?
Well, next time we amend the bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
The chairman was already taken.
I don't know if it was glorious or supreme leader, but something like that. Okay, but just just for the listeners, I mean, just to clarify that the point is, like, Andrew actually or our CEO always has both titles, president and CEO. So before we were kind of voting twice, so this is what John was referring to, that we are fixing that. So John moved, Pepper seconded,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And being a change in the bylaws, we will go roll call. So as usual, please, we will start with Glenn, moving in this direction, and please state name and yes, no, or abstain.
Glenn McKnight, yes.
Yoshi, yes. Richard Barnes, yes.
Desiree Milosevic, yes.
Hans-Peter Dittler, yes.
Sean Turner, yes.
Gonzalo, yes.
John, yes.
Walid, yes. Harish Pillay, yes.
Olga Cavalli, yes.
Pepper, yes.
Okay, the resolution passes unanimously. Thank you. This was kind of a warm-up resolution. I hope you can do it faster next time. Yeah, thanks. No, this is important because, as I said, I mean, it's a minor change, but being the bylaws, it's always good to do a roll call. Okay, perfect. And then moving on to number 4, we don't need a resolution, but it's to talk basically about the charter chapters. So, Christine?
Christine's online.
Oh, it's online. Okay, yeah, I was looking for her in the room. Okay.
Go ahead, Christine.
Hello, sorry about this. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, I just totally lost audio while switching over. So I want to give a quick update on recently dechartered chapters, which might seem funny because we usually give an update on new chapters. So in a nutshell, there were no new chapters since the last board meeting, but we did decharter a few chapters. Next slide. You can jump this one, it's in the agenda anyways. So just to give some background, actually I realize I don't have my camera on, sorry for this. So we have a few chapters that have been inactive for a while and with whom we have started a rejuvenation process to ensure that all the chapters that we actually have listed as active chapters are indeed active. In some cases, the rejuvenation process has re-energized the chapters and new and dynamic groups came in and took over the leadership of the chapters. For 6 of those chapters, these efforts have, however, not been successful within the 12 months given for the rejuvenation according to the processes that were discussed or acknowledged during the last board meeting. And we thus proceeded to a dechartering of those chapters. There are various reasons for this, for an unsuccessful rejuvenation period, and these reasons could be or have been no volunteer interest in certain cases, political tensions between various local groups, and thus no consensus found to take the process forward within the local group, or a difficult environment for nonprofit volunteer organizations in general that they're working in. So next slide. So the 6 chapters that have been dechartered over the last month are Belgium, Bologna, Hungary, Luxembourg, Mauritius, Qatar, and the Disability and Special Needs chapter. In some of these cases, actually in many of these cases, it does open the way for new groups that have been there and would be interested in forming a new chapter, but that for various reasons could not do this through the rejuvenation. The Disability and Special Needs chapter, for example, is one of these examples where we have a few of the peoples involved in that chapter previously now being involved in a new initiative to create an accessibility special interest group. So there are groups willing to take over, and it does open the way in certain cases for new groups to come in. Next slide. So I thought it might just be interesting for you to see how that affects numbers. So currently in March 2019, we have 120 active chapters. Almost all of them have now signed the chapter charter letters. The 2 remaining ones we're still in discussion with, and will hopefully come to a conclusion very shortly. We have 8 special interest groups, 7 chapters that are in rejuvenation. The rejuvenation of those started in January, so these are groups that have only just started the rejuvenation, mainly due to the non-signature of the charter letter, but also because they've been inactive in most of these cases. It's rather inactive groups there. And the 6 chapters that have been dechartered in February 2019 that I just mentioned here. I think that was it for the 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And good to see that there's only 2 remaining charters to sign. So it's good to see the progress. I'm going to build up a queue here. So Glenn, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks for the report. Question, the chapters that are in rejuvenation, do they have sort of a trial period to get their act together, or what's the process for them in moving forward?
Yeah, this is also specified in the processes that we now published on our website. Before they go into an official rejuvenation phase, there is a pre-rejuvenation phase of 3 months that does not affect their overall status as full chapters. So during those 3 months, ISOC staff actually works with the group to hopefully get the chapter back on its feet before starting a 12 months rejuvenation period.
Walid?
I'm looking at the map and it says that Qatar is in rejuvenation. Is that to be updated? Right, the map, yes, that will be updated. It has been a recent shift on the back end, so this has not been updated on the map yet, but thanks for spotting this. It will be taken care of.
Yeah, thank you, Walid. Anything else? Okay, excellent. We don't have any more questions. Thanks for the presentation. Moving to the next point, which you will be presenting as well. We're going to have an overview of ISOC special interest groups. So yeah, please go ahead.
For the presentation to come up.
Yeah, they are working on it. Okay, there it is.
Good. So yes, this is an update on the special interest groups that we currently have. So there are 8 that are chartered and focus on different topics such as youth, women, community networking, cybersecurity, Internet of Food, blockchain, interplanetary networking, and IoT. So while most of these, well, actually all of these are still fairly new and young groups, some of them have become actually fairly active over the last few years, mainly the youth and women at the top of the list there. We also can see in terms of numbers, the youth special interest group is certainly the one growing quickest in terms of gathering new members and increasing their reach. You can see the date there when they've been chartered, the numbers of members, and a quick overview of some of the activities that are worth mentioning. There are certainly others, but this is just to give you an idea of what some of the things are that special interest groups are working on. So, for example, the youth SIG there had a Beyond the Net large grant over the last few years that was focusing on creating networks that was mainly focused on identifying current and existing initiatives that involve youth and connecting the dots, sort of to increasing the network there. The Women's SIG has a project that is currently competing for one of the WSIS prizes 2019. That's the Global Editathon Girls on ICT Day last year. They're also planning a webinar on Friday, which is not listed here actually, but it's a webinar around the International Women's Day that is open to the community. The community networking, SIG also had a Beyond the Net large grant on routers and connecting communities by providing services or bringing services to remote villages. They also work very closely with the CN campaign team, Community Networks campaign team. The cybersecurity SIG did have a series of successful webinars with, in some cases, more than 100 participants on them, where they bring together experts on cybersecurity issues and are actually very successful in attracting participants there. Keep that engagement ongoing. The Internet of Food SIG does also have an upcoming event, 27th of March in Sweden, but remote participation for that one is possible. It's on the topic, who decides what's for dinner. They also recently produced a blog, a video around what their work is, because there are questions sometimes as to what this special interest group is all about. So there is a video done by the chair of that SIG that actually explains some of their reasoning and some of their thinking that they're doing around this topic. The blockchain SIG, Wally is in the room, so is an active community, and they usually come together in conjunction to other events, global events, and engage through e-lists, as also do the interplanetary networking and the IoT SIG. The interplanetary networking SIG is actually the oldest one, which has been created even before we officially reintroduced the special interest groups, and has now been transferred from a chapter to a special interest group at the end of last year. So next slide. So we added in a few pictures here to give you a sense of what some of these activities might look like. So this is a picture on the left hand from the youth SIG at LAC IGF with a lot of young people. LAC IGF in 2015 was actually the place where the ideas about the youth IGF started germing. And this group came together to actually form the special interest group going forward. So many of these SIGs at the beginning come out of regional initiatives and then work on globalizing their scope, while chapters have a geographic scope, usually a national one. The SIGs by their nature have a global scope. So that's something we're working on with the SIGs to ensure that they become global in scope and truly global in scope. The women's SIG, which you see a photo of on the right-hand side, during an event in Mexico, is one of the SIGs that has been most successful in diversifying their board, with having members from various regions sitting on their board, and are also reaching out to recruit new members across the regions. Next slide. This is a picture from the Community Network SIG while they were doing their project on providing point-to-point networking to connect small villages and bring services to those villages, and thus have a concrete impact on rural communities. Next slide. So this is Johan Jorgensen from the Internet of Food SIG, explaining, it's a screenshot from the video they did, what their work is all about and what they're focusing on. It's about the food, who decides what we eat, are algorithms taking over? It's this type of question that they're addressing. It's actually very fascinating once you start reading. On the right-hand side, there's an example of cybersecurity webinar. It's just an example. They usually pull together specialists on the topic and offer those and announce those to the community. Next slide. So goals for 2019, as I mentioned, many of these come from a regional initiative initially. So we continue our work with the SIGs to make sure that they actually their membership, but also their leadership has a global scope and has representatives from all regions. We'd also like to work more on awareness raising around topics covered by the SIGs, and also SIG activities through blogs and community engagement channels. We'd also like to strengthen and reinforce the relationships between the SIGs themselves, but also between the SIGs and the chapters, and encourage chapter members to also join a SIG if they're interested in a certain topic, and thus strengthening their membership there. Something also on our plate are the SIG charter letters. So while we revised the chapter charter letters last year, the SIG charter letters are now on our plate this year. This has a specific challenge because of the global scope of the SIGs. It's difficult for them to register somewhere. So currently we have the situation that none of the SIGs are legally registered and have an official bank account in their name. So this is something we're looking at also with our legal counsel as to how we can best take this forward and find a solution, including looking at options as as to having the SIGs as online communities without legal registration of some sort. But that's something we're looking at going forward. The last point here is that, as with the chapters, we have the new performance evaluation criteria that has been developed over the last year by a working group made up of chapter volunteers, chapter SIG volunteers. So we hope that based on these criteria and the new evaluations, we'll have a better understanding of the actual impact and also areas where we can better support our chapters and SIGs going forward. I believe this is the last slide.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And I'm good that you guys are working on assessing the impact of our activities, including the SIGs, because I think it's always interesting to understand, how we are moving the needle, so to speak. Well, before I take questions, I mean, just again, for the structure of the presentation and the agenda, as you know, we usually have one of the regional bureaus present to us, but since, next time we are going to Montreal and then the North American Bureau will be presenting here, and we have basically been talking to all the bureaus. We thought that this time would be interesting to just, have a presentation on the special interest groups. And so that's why, you are seeing basically this presentation. Furthermore, we thought that it would be a good idea to have one particular SIG basically being presented, which is going to be the next slot. Having said that, do we have any questions? Pepper. And then
this was actually really interesting. I hadn't realized the breadth of the SIGs. The question is, some of these sound really interesting, like the Internet of Food, but how much of that is just because it's somebody's personal interest and it becomes a SIG, and as opposed to something on cybersecurity, which actually has broader interest and deeper import for the community. So, and people can create their own interest groups on. That's one of the nice things about the internet and being online. Anybody can create any kind of interest group, anybody can join, but the question is, are there any limits to what would be sort of a personal interest, something that'd be fun and cool, for it to become an ISOC SIG? And that I don't know what the criteria are.
Christine, do you want to address that?
I can maybe start on this, yes. So the SIGs, as also the chapters, if we receive an application, it's usually reviewed by staff first, but then shared for a peer review with the wider community, meaning the chapter delegates list. That usually goes for a two-week review period, or peer review period, during which comments are received. And sometimes, if the community feels this is not a topic that is of interest to the wider community, that would come up during that discussion, or suggestions to merge certain SIGs in terms of their topic or overlap would come out during that peer review period, where we then reach out to the people who suggested the SIG in the first place to see how that can be addressed, or if something could be merged, or if that's not a topic that is of relevance going forward for the full wider community. There's also the fact that at the beginning, when a SIG starts, it's temporary for 2 years and becomes a full SIG after 2 years if the topic is still deemed as relevant for the community.
Okay, thank you. Haris?
Thank you for that. I got a couple of questions. First one is there a concerted effort in terms of trying to publicize the different SIGs on a regular basis? The reason I asked that is because last week, the Singapore chapter ISOC, we had a meeting, and so I did mention about the security chapter and the security SIG, and it was about that particular meeting was all about IoT security and stuff like that. And none in the audience even heard of the chapter. I mean, sorry, the SIGs, to get the thing the right order. And so that's part of I think it's an awareness as well. So I'm just wondering whether it's possible to have something that I have had experience in a different context, where we had what we called a SIG festival, where we had over a couple of days, all the various SIGs having talks and whatever. So it happens at one, I mean, this happens to be in one physical location that was easy, but in our case here, it will be all distributed around the world. But at least that way you have, in one day you get to listen to all the different talks and whatever that might be. And so at least there's the immediate awareness building, saying, oh, there's this other SIG and this other SIG. And so not only are you in your own circle, but it helps you to grow your experience and interest as well. I'm just wondering whether that would be something that you want to look at. And the second question, before I forget, what is a sunset clause for a SIG? When would you sunset a SIG? At which point, and what triggers a sunset clause, if there is such a thing?
I'll start responding to the first one, then maybe Joyce, if you may help with the second one. So I love the idea of a SIG festival. That's actually, I really like that idea. So far, I think we can improve a lot on how we communicate about the SIGs and make sure everybody knows about the existence of the SIGs in general in a concerted way. I did include a summary of all the SIGs that existed in one of the chapter updates in an effort to make the chapters aware of those, but that has been a one-off thing. So I think we can do a lot to improve on raising awareness on the SIGs in general. Yes, Joyce.
So, Joyce, Joyce?
Yes, I'll take the second
Okay,
one. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah, please go ahead.
So as Christine was saying, there's two ways of actually sunsetting. One of the things we put in place was a temporary status of SIGs, basically to Pepper's point earlier, as well as that in some cases some things may sound like a good idea at a given moment, but is it really addressing the needs? Is it really having an impact? And so we have a temporary status for our special interest groups for 2 years. And we have an evaluation in place after that. One, to mostly up until this point, I have to say it's mostly been on activity. So are they actually active? Are they growing in terms of members? Are the activities visible? Do they work well together, and so on and so on? So we are now, as Christine was mentioning, with the evaluation criteria, really turning to what is the impact of the chapters on the one hand, but on the special interest groups as well. And so the one period of the 2 years is making it easy, because we don't have to go through the whole dechartering process. So it's an easy, quicker process to say, it was a great idea. It had its time, but it's time to close, and it's under a common agreement. After that, we'll really go through the evaluations and looking at the impact. So that's, and then it would go through the similar process as we have for chapters.
Thank you, Joyce. I have Glenn and then Olga.
I really like Harish's idea there. That reminds me of a concept that facilitators usually use. It's called Cracker Barrel. So basically it's a rotation, very short presentations on a concept. So you can rapidly go through these presentations. I think this could be done on a regular basis. But I want to go back to what we did at the IGF Paris. If you recall, Walid and Olga, we had a separate table, separate from ISOC, and it was for SIGs. Not a single piece of literature was available. I had the NomCom mail cards, and I had some generic stuff on ISOC, but there was nothing to hand to people. So we had a very busy booth at the IGF, but nothing to hand out to anybody. So that might be something to consider. Because sure, we can send them off to the website, but if you have somebody interested, it'd be nice to give some collateral or even swag.
Thank you. Olga.
Thank you. And thank you, Christine, for the presentation. And hi, Joyce. Hi, Christine. It's more a comment than a question. I haven't seen all the SIGs rising up, which I think is fantastic. Especially I think there are 4 that were born in Latin America. It's the cybersecurity, youth, community networks, and the women. the community has the impression that is the first one that has the idea, is the first one that they get the SIG. So I think that perhaps ISOC organization could help in building up the first starting group, adding other people from other regions, so it's not so biased into one only region, and helping building the first early board to build the SIG, and also capturing communities from other regions, so it is more diverse, and maybe having more material for events like IGF or regional IGFs. The beautiful picture was in Buenos Aires last year for the LAC IGF, and a lot of people, but they were mainly from Latin America, which is fantastic, but it could be good that it's really global. Just a comment, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Olga. I have Hiroshi and then Andrew.
Yeah, I think the having a SIG, it would be good because that is the across the national boundary. That's good. Though I may afraid the discussion is more general, not related with the purely internet. Then losing the focus of the activity. I may think the uniqueness of the ISOC is technology and practical operation. Not the voice to the government, but voice to society from the say more general point of view. So I'm afraid who is overseeing those SIG activities, because we carefully working from the viewpoint of the technical expertise. That is the uniqueness and the importance and the value of the ISOC, I believe. So how manage or how guide the discussion of the SIG would be very important, because we cannot involving a lot of time to the SIG activities, because everybody is busy for their work, their own work. So that is my concerning for the SIG activities.
I mean, that's a comment, or it's a question for them, or how we're gonna do that, or?
Yeah. The later part would be the the question how oversee or manage the SIG.
Okay. So Joyce, Christine, did you hear the question? It's like how do you currently oversee that? What the SIG does make sense, basically, in a summary.
Yes, we do have, as we do with the chapters, we have the regional community engagement managers. We have somebody, Kyle Schulman, who's looking after the SIGs, the special interest groups, and is in touch with them on a regular basis. We also identified staff liaison persons on the subjects covered by the SIGs, who would reach out and follow what the SIGs are doing. At the same time, those SIGs, like I mentioned, the community network SIG, for example, does work closely with the community networking campaign team. So to make sure they're aligned, they work together and join forces there. I'm not sure if this addresses the question.
Hiroshi. Yeah, Hiroshi seems happy. If Hiroshi is happy, we are all happy. Thank you. Okay, so we have two more questions. Please be concise. So I have Hans-Peter and then Andrew.
Yeah, quick one. I'm not sure to see how SIGs are really aligned with other programs inside ISOC. Okay, there are exceptions. You just mentioned one, which is quite well aligned, but others are, for me, still a little bit more, I would call it PIGs. It's personal interest groups and not SIGs. So something goes a little bit astray sometimes in those groups. I believe the security group is one I'm following, is meandering around having very basic educational material, how to access this at all. And a week later, it's something which is globally. So I'm missing a little bit the clear goals. A goal for a chapter is to provide what ISOC does locally with some local context, with some local connectivity. With SIGs, I'm not so sure about it. And that's not a specific question. It's more a remark.
Yeah. Thank you, Hans-Peter. Maybe at some point we should look into that. Andrew.
My comment here, or question, I guess, is related to this thread that we've just been talking about. So Olga said, for instance, that when things are getting started, maybe the Internet Society staff could help, bring in some people from other kinds of interests. And there was this question about when a SIG makes sense, or what the relationship is between the SIG and the wider Internet Society community. It's important to remember that just like chapters, these are not Internet Society corporate activities, right? They're independent organizations, analogous to chapters. So they're organized around a topic, and what that means is that it's a community-driven thing, and that can mean that and they don't have exactly the same structure as chapters. I mean, for instance, they can't. As I guess Christine already mentioned, because they're not in a place, they're not governed by a national law in the same way that chapters frequently are, and so on. But there's still this flavor of it being, the community driving this thing. And we've had rather bad experience, for instance, with attempting to manage that kind of thing. It's something that gets people's backs up because they don't want the Internet Society staff sort of trying to tell them, no, you need to take into account, for instance, the interests of people who might be interested in food from Asia, just to pick on one. So that's a sort of thing that I'm a little bit leery of asking the Internet Society staff to do, unless we can get the Chapters Advisory Council or some other community body to ask us to do that, because I'd be very nervous about trying to manage those things. Again, remember, for instance, we do not manage the positions that chapters take. Many of you will be aware that the Internet Society chapter in France has a position with respect to Facebook that we do not share as a corporate body, and that's okay. That's the design of that system, because we're a large and diverse community, and we want to encourage that. But I don't want I don't want us to try to handle the SIGs in a radically different way, unless we're going to be quite careful about how we're going to distinguish between SIGs and chapters and the organizational principles behind them. And if we do that, we're going to have to make a larger breach than currently is the case. If you look, for instance, at the way we handle SIGs, they're currently treated as a sort of kind of version of chapters, which is why they show up in the chapters pages and so on. We could make a decision to do that, but I think in that case, we're going to have to invest quite a lot of effort in the SIGs. Thanks.
So I guess the question, going back to my first question and sort of reframing it, Andrew, because I think it's very helpful. What differentiates an ISOC SIG from a Facebook group? In other words, there are people who are interested in food or security, whatever. I mean, there are other avenues to have groups of interest. What differentiates or distinguishes an ISOC group of interest from any of these others that now, given all the tools and platforms, can self-create on the internet, which may have not been the case to have done that as easily when SIGs were started at ISOC, because being an ISOC group of interest carries with it, notwithstanding the fact, and this was part of the conversation about the parish chapter, notwithstanding the fact that it is independent, they do use the ISOC brand. They are wrapping themselves in the ISOC name and cloak of credibility that other just groups of interest. I want to have a group of interest on Labrador puppies, right? Which I love. So, but I'm not going to have an ISOC SIG on Labrador puppies. What distinguishes that?
So part of the answer to this is one of the reasons that the charter letters need the attention that they do this year, because we had this problem with the chapters, and we took some time, as you may all be aware, to work through that along with the chapters and the advisory council and so on. And we continue to have, as we saw in the last presentation, some people who are still resisting that sort of thing. And there may be some results of this, that we will have some chapters, some things that were used to be chapters in the world and they will turn into things that are ISOC such and thus place, but do not have a chapter relationship to us, because that's the formality that we we structured it through this chapter charter letter, and that took quite a bit of time. We haven't done that yet for special interest groups, and there is this live question of exactly how that's going to work. I don't think that this is going to be a trivial piece of work, actually, because at least in the case of the chapter, you had the very clear criterion of geography. So we do have this mechanism, however, and we have people who are interested in it. It's pretty clear that what this is going to have to do is it's going to require that such a group subscribe to the Internet Society's principles and values in just the way the chapters have to, and that they're going to have to admit that this association with the Internet Society means that there are restrictions on what they may and may not do with that branding and so on, and that's all part of what has to happen there. If you want my personal opinion about why would somebody go through the effort of setting up a SIG as opposed to setting up like a mailing list or setting up a group on any of the social media platforms or whatever you like, I mean, personally, probably I would do it the other way because I'm not really fond of big processes. But if somebody really wants to do something within the context of the Internet Society, or they want access to the chapter funding mechanisms and so on, it's not clear how those apply to special interest groups. We can't, for instance, fund any of them right now because they don't have bank accounts because they're not in a place. So that's actually a restriction that is carried from that. But fundamentally, if there is some value in associating this and doing it under the umbrella of the Internet Society, it needs to come from, the value of the umbrella itself. And maybe later in this meeting, we're going to have some discussions about that having to do with organizational members.
This is a good discussion. So before we wrap up, Joyce was in the queue. You wanted to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to add, I think, I won't repeat what Andrew said. I think he covered he covered a lot of what I wanted to say. One of the things, maybe just to step back, is that the creation of special interest groups is, I mean, it goes back a little bit in history. There used to be special interest groups. We stopped having them. And then actually on request of our community, we reactivated the special interest groups. The main reason for it was that there was a desire from our community to work across chapters on specific topics and not be bound by that geography, but to work on a specific topic that was of common interest, and that it was not necessarily bound by that geography boundary that Andrew was mentioning. As I mentioned earlier, they have to define what their scope and focus is in their application. And so that is the basis on which the validity, if we can say it like that, of the topic and of the application is looked at. Having said that, over the last 2 years that we had the SIGs now, we have looked at activity rather than impact. And so that is something that we are addressing now going forward as well. So this will drive some of the decisions or some of the discussions, I should say, and recommendations on whether the SIG is indeed having the impact that is related to the Internet Society and not to something random that is just a common interest. So I think, and just to confirm what Andrew was referring to, yes, the funding is one of the big parts, and so now not having the ability to have some of the funding because of the necessity of having a bank account might change the dynamics actually for special interest groups.
Okay, good. But I think you got good feedback from the board, and it's food for thought. And actually, I mean, since you are basically going through the process you just explained, I think it's good input to take into consideration. Real quick, Harish.
I just wanted to request that if and when a SIG gets retired, that whatever contents and stuff like that that's been created is actually archived, that can be searched in case somebody 10 years later want to revive it or something like that. That would be most useful. So thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I think this was a great presentation to set the scene for the next presentation, which is, as I said, we thought that having a presentation on an actual SIG would be interesting. So we're gonna have Ellison and Luisa Veronica joining us, and they're gonna be presenting the youth SIG. So can you guys hear us? Ellison, Luisa Veronica?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you. Okay, so hey, thanks for joining, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi everyone. I want to know if Edison is also here with me.
Ellison, can you hear us? Just hold on a second. Seth is looking into that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So, do we know if Ellison is with us?
I see his name here, but I'm not sure if he's available, if he's speaking, if he's.
Yeah, he's supposed to be here, but we haven't heard from him. So, Ellison, can you hear us? Maybe you are muted.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, now we can. Excellent. So now we have both of you. So yeah, please go ahead with the presentation. And now we can even see you. So excellent.
Well, I'm Ellison Diones. I'm from Brazil, from the city of Salvador. I'm 24 years old. Well, Veronica's here, so she can present herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Veronica Arroyo. I'm from Peru. I'm 27 years old right now, and I'm vice chair of the Youth Observatory.
And I'm the chair. So Veronica, if you.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue with this presentation. So please, first of all, thank you all of you for having us today to make this short presentation of all the work that we have been doing this 2-3. Well, it's gonna be 3 years now, but yeah. So what's the youth SIG? You've been talking about youth, about a special group of interest, and we are an example of those groups. And the Youth Observatory, as we call it, as is the name, but it's for Internet Society, is the youth SIG. It started as an initiative in October 2015. As you might remember, in that year, ISOC partnered with the CGI of Brazil to launch a program for youth in Latin America. So the main objective was to bring around 60 youth from all Latin America to the IGF in João Pessoa, and they were trained on internet governance issues, and they saw a possibility and a good opportunity to build something that can be led by youth for youth. And that's why it started to call they started to be a group of young people. We've been officially recognized by Internet Society as a special interest group in February 2016. And our main objective all this year has been to increase the participation of young people in the discussion spaces, in internet governance forums, locally, regional, local, and international or global IGFs, and other types of meetings as well. And nowadays we have 1,200 members that we can count on, and we have an internet structure as well, a board of directors, 7 working committees for specific topics that help our organizations to work, and 6 regional groups, because as you may know, we are also turned our regional focus to an international one. So we have regional groups to cover that part. And yeah, I think that's the youth SIG mainly. We can move to the second one, second slide.
Yeah. Well, what we have done. So in these 3 years, we have made a lot of projects and participating in a lot of events. Some of them are these ones that You can see the project Youth in Schools that some members from different countries go to the schools and talk with other young people about how to be safe in the internet, how to use the internet, the good, the bad, how to, you know, to use the potential that the internet have for them. And we promote some, we have promoted some online campaigns. We have participating in a lot of events in national, regional, and global level, including panels. We had a panel at the IGF last year in Paris. We have a panel in Swiss the other year, and in Mexico too. So we have some workshops. We have some training webinars that we make some months we make first webinars. We have the webinars that are going to happen in the next months of the project Creating Networks that we are going to talk to you more in front. We had some on-site events that I'm going to talk after that, and we had some youth declarations. We have a youth declaration in Brazil. We had a youth declaration in the IGF, the global IGF that happened in Brazil in 2016. We have a woman declaration in the IGF Mexico, I think. So we have a lot of projects and initiatives that we do during the whole year. Next one.
Okay, the next point to talk about and to highlight about all the initiatives that we have done is this book. We did a call for papers to people, so youth can write like papers or interviews, anything, research. Sorry. And the book, we launched this book in 2017. We had the funding from Beyond the Net and some partner organizations as well. We have articles written by youth, people from different parts of Latin America. And we did a translation from, well, sometimes we received articles in Portuguese or in Spanish, and we translate them into Portuguese, Spanish, and all of them into English. We had printed copies in English and in Portuguese. We give them away for free in different events that we had. I clearly remember one of them in the IGF in Geneva, where we hosted a workshop and we presented this book. And at the end of the presentation, we gave away some of those books, and we also had them save it in USB drivers, and we also gave them to the people that attended that meeting. Next one, please.
Yeah, quick question. That book, is it available somewhere online, or it was mostly paper copies, or?
No. We have this book in your website.
Okay, it's on the website.
In 3 languages for everyone.
Okay, excellent. We'll have a look at it for sure. It sounds very interesting. Yeah, please continue.
Okay. Other project that we have that it's super important for us is the Youth Like IGF Initiative. It's the first regional internet governance forum focused on young people in their particularities. So we launched this event in 2016. The first edition was in Costa Rica, and we find this event like a way to have more young people participating in a event, like in a regional event, and to have a space for young people from different countries in Latin America to, to meet, to know each other and share experiences and learn with each other, to share these knowledge at the big events that happen after there is the like IGF. So we had the first edition in Costa Rica, and then we have in Panama, we had in Argentina, and we are starting to organize the this year edition that we don't know yet where the event will be, because we every year we make these events together with the like IGF, because we want face young people to not just participate in our meeting, but to have an opportunity to participate in the big one. There is the like IGF, because you know they can have a bigger experience and learn more and share more what they know, what they they acknowledge. So the event is supported by different companies and organizations. Isaac is one of them. These 3 years that we have the event, we had support from Dot Argentina, from Dot Brazil, SaferNet Brazil, from Google, from Facebook, from Icon, from a lot of organizations and companies all over the world. And we we have fellowships for these events, because we know that young people, most of the young people didn't have the money to travel for this type of events in other countries mostly. So we had a fellowship in the 3 years of at the event, because of the support that we receive from different companies and organizations. So this is one of our main projects. And in other slide, I will talk more about another initiative that is kind of the same of this one, but it's in the other slide. You can turn to the next slide, please.
So the next one is creating networks. And as a funny story, Edison and I we participated in the first generation of the fellowship of the Youth Like IGF. It was my first experience in internet governance. So because of that initiative, because of that fellowship, I'm still working on internet governance issues. So I'm very, very grateful of that opportunity that I had. Well, creating networks is another initiative that we have right now, and this is currently in our priorities. And we receive a fund from Beyond the Net, $16,000, which is a lot of money, but we're trying to handle that. This initiative has two main objectives. One is to identify youth initiatives. It was at the beginning was just identify youth initiatives in Latin America, but as we turn the Youth Observatory to be international, then we changed that to identify youth initiatives around the world. And the second objective is to do capacity building on internet governance issues with those initiatives. To date, we have already done all the reaching of those organizations because we started with a survey online, and people were answering that survey, and then we got in contact with them, and we got 78 responses to date. So those are 78 initiatives that are youth initiatives or try to work with youth around the world. We already have contacted them, and now we're in the process to do all the capacity building things. So we're going to do webinars and one-on-one meetings with them, so we can give them all the knowledge that, well, for instance, Internet Society has already worked on internet governance issues. So we are in that point of that project, and we have a web page on that as well. And yeah, and as far as I know, we're trying to make it. We're trying to make our best in this. The next one.
Okay. For a little more of context in the internationalization process, the Youth SIG or Youth Observatory was made by well, the first members were from Latin America because the organization was made by the ambassadors from the first youth at the IGF program, and they were all from Latin America. So the youth SIG just had Latin American members, and we had Spanish and Portuguese as language of the organization. So well, at some point, we stop and think that we want to be global, but we have this language issue solved before we go global. So we have a lot of discussions and consultations with our members, with some people from ISOC. And then last year, we, we made an internationalization plan to finally go global. So we made we have like regional groups for our members to divide them and have a better way to talk, to share their experience and to work together in projects and a lot of things. And we have a global group with all our members to have everyone integrated and sharing things and learn with each other and etc. So by last year until now, we are finally a global organization, and we are always trying to make it better because we always can make things better. So we are trying to make projects and make uh, a lot of things events and try to bring more people to participate in the other regions that we didn't have work worked until now. And we have 6 new positions at the board. There are the regional directors because we want to have this one person for each region to have a special focus in the region and to learn to share what they think that we can do to work better. So we're in this process now to make everyone integrated and work together to make a better job that we have been doing during these years. Next one, please. Well, for these years, we are continuing the internationalization process, like I said, holding meetings and projects with the intention of involving even more members within the regions other from Latin America, because in Latin America we have a huge presence. We have members from every country in Latin America, and we have, like Veronica said, we have 2000 more than 1,000 members. So we are trying to integrate everyone to make everyone work together. We will work in strengthening the youth like AGF as a space of discussion for young people. And we will work in creating other spaces like the youth like IGF in other regions, starting with Africa. The members, it was actually an initiative for the members of the organization that reside in the Africa region. They want to, they saw the work that we do with the youth like IGF, and they didn't have any space like that for the young people from Africa to share the knowledge and everything. So we are working with them to bring this space, this kind of event to Africa to for them to have this space to to share knowledge with other young people and to participate, to learn and everything. Veronica?
Yeah, to complement your idea, it's going to be very interesting for us to move or to copy that idea and improve basically what we did in the youth like IGF the past 3 years and to do it in Africa. We are going to have a call on Friday, so it's for you tomorrow and for us it's in 2 days with the Africa group to discuss other projects and mainly this one as well. And we're also going to continue working on this creating networks project that I've already told you. And because that's the way how we connect with other people, because there are other initiatives on youth for youth people, and but this is how we are trying to get to know them. And we're the final like point for this year is to increase the participation, as I already told you that this is one of our main objectives, and increase the representation of our organization of our youth SIG in major events. We have already talked with Alejandra Prieto from ISOC, and she said that it's going to be possible for us to send at least someone from the youth SIG to participate and to have an agenda and to do some like real work while participating on those major events. Obviously, if we're not going to send a person from Latin America to an event that is going to be in Japan, for example, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be someone from Asia that can attend a meeting in Japan. But yeah, that's a way how we can put them in a position to participate, because and to date we have our members from Latin America, and I think Olga is in the meeting, but she cannot she can support this idea, I think. But most of the people there are part of the youth SIG from Latin America. Now they are doing like great things as professional people, and they are creating their own projects. They are working on important in important positions in their countries, and I think that the Youth Observatory is doing a great job creating this space to give youth the opportunity to grow. And that's why for us it's very important to give these chances and these opportunities to other people to be part of a group and grow inside of them, and like spread the word about internet and how beautiful it is to work in the increase of an open and free internet for everyone.
Okay, yeah, we indeed have Olga in the room, so she's here. She was not in, and yeah, so thanks for the presentation. Thanks for the contact info. I think it's good for us also to understand, what's going on a bit more in detail in one of the six. So I think that was great. As I said, I would be interested in having a look at the analysis of a connected youth book you mentioned. I went to the website in a quick search. I couldn't find it. So if you guys could send an email to Olga, Kevin, whoever, me, to make it available to the board, that would be great, because we would be very interested in having a look at it. So please, when you have a minute, do that, and we'll take it from there. Also, it's clear that you guys have a lot of energy. This all started kind of very focused on Latin America, as I could understand, but I see that for your presentation, you are trying to expand to other regions, which is great. So please keep us updated on how that goes. And then we have a few questions here. As always, please be concise, because we are already a bit late with the agenda. So we're gonna take Walid and then Olga.
Yes, first of all, congratulations. This is really impressive, I must say. One nut we couldn't crack in CIGs is basically the inability to have a system or virtual presence of an organization that can change and not be fixed to a particular geolocation. Because if you think of it in the long run, it would be possible that board members would change and then the location would change as well. Or it might be that there could be a virtual mechanism in which one can hand over authority to others across the world to control bank accounts, etc. This is something that we're struggling with. We can't really figure out how to do. What ideas did you have to get over this?
I don't know if Veronica wants to jump in.
I couldn't understand very well. Do you mean that how we can handle that the board will change in the future? That we have new members in the next New Year's, and or maybe that we are going to change and the new board will be from another country. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, that's the point.
So a point you mentioned here is that by the end of this year we're going to have elections. So that means that the board, which right now is mainly based in is from Latin America, will change. So that means that we need to have people from other parts of the globe, of the world. Also, inside of our structure, we should have a person from each region as a point of contact and also as like the leader of the region. So that's going to give, I think it will help us to balance a little bit all the priorities and how to do better. I think that will, I think that, does it really answers your question?
Mine was more about financing, accounting, bankings, issuing checks, etc. So that's the bottleneck. Yeah.
Oh, okay. For all these years, we received funding, as you may already listened, but we receive funding to our members, so to our personal accounts, and we have been very careful with all the money because it's another account, and we always share that information in the board, so we already know how much money we have left and things like that. But in the future, one of the problems that we do have is that we're not official in one country, and it's quite difficult to be official in one country because the laws in each country are different, and maybe they will require us to be present, or they will require that all the members sign a minute or something like that. So that's a bottleneck for sure.
Yeah, just to complete, we have a institutional account that one member, that's the treasurer, is the one that take care. Where is the accounts that we receive money from Isaac when we have our projects or something like that. But for example, when we receive money from other company or organization, if we have a member that are in the board or was in the board some years ago, that is someone that the board trusts, this member can receive the money in his account and is always sharing with the board reports of the things that are been doing with the money. For example, if we have a member in Asia and we have a project in Asia, this member will be the one that is caring about payments and buying things there. So we have these like the official accounts that we use for Isaac, for example, and we have money with different members that are authorized by the board to receive from other companies and organizations and to manage if it's closer to him.
Okay, yeah. I think it's good that you guys have processes, and I think you answer Walid's question. So in order to gain some time, I'm gonna go to Olga and Richard and then close the mics. So Olga, please.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Very briefly, hello, dear Dion and querida. Thank you for your work. I've been following you since Joe Pessoa, and you're great. I think you do a great job. And the incredible thing is that you accepted me as a member of the Youth SIG, which is remarkable. Thank you for that. And I would like to, I am one of the 78 respondents of your survey. And I would like to know, how do you plan to publish the results of the Creating Networks project that you are working on? Thank you.
Well, Juliana is the one that is in the front of this project. She's from Brazil, and the project, the report of the project we will have a post in Isaac's blog. We will have some, we'll make a report that we are going to make public in our website. And if we had approved workshop on the one of the biggest events that we go, like the IGF this year, for example, we pretend to have a space like 5 minutes, for example, to present the results of these projects together with the results of the youth like IGF and other initiatives that we have. So we pretend to, in the end of the year, when we finalize the project, we are going to make public all the results that we have with this project.
Thank you. And to conclude, Richard.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, guys. One of the topics that came up in the earlier discussion of SIGs was looking at impact and the impact that these SIGs are having in the world. Obviously, in internet governance, there's like other stuff. It's easy to kind of have meetings and talk about things and not get real action. So I'm curious, like, what do you guys think are the things that the youth SIG has done that have had the most kind of real world impacts?
Well, in my point of view, the youth SIG having been for me, for example, was a really good experience that changed my life. Not just mine, but of a lot of members. Like, we have members that after participating, not just in the youth SIG, of course, but in the meetings and in the meetings that we had, everything, etc. They learn more. They make networking. They grow as a person, as a professional. So we have a lot of members that are spreading and participating in a lot of things, like board of organizations. We have members that work, for example, in Google, in Facebook. We are impacting not just in the lives of the members directly, but we are making this, like, we are putting a seed somewhere and watching they grow and impact others that are around. So this is my point of view of the work the youth SIG have been doing. They have we are spreading during these years, and growing up as a professional, and bring other people to grow with us and to have a voice to impact in the decisions, or at least to try to impact in the decisions about the internet governance. So this is my point of view. I don't know if Veronica has something to.
Yeah, I have another example that maybe can also be related to the to SIGs. We wrote, all the girls from the Youth Observatory, we get it online for sure, and we wrote a women declaration for young women declaration for girls, and how we see all this, like, internet, how internet is affecting our life, and how we are shaping the internet. That declaration is online as well, and how this declaration impact the internet governance or internet ecosystem was it. My colleague or my friend from the Youth SIG, she presented this on IFF, and then we presented it also on the IGF, and then now they have a exactly SIG just for women, and they have this SIG for women, and the members and the founders of this SIG are also members and founders of the Internet Society Youth SIG. So this is how they see this as a very big opportunity where they can start building their own projects and their own things. This is just one example, and I'm very proud of what they have accomplished all this time, and they're working hard to move the gender agenda. And then I have to just subscribe to what Ellison has been saying on the how we're helping other people here and how we're helping the society as well.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so we don't have any more questions. We are a bit behind the schedule, but I thought it was good presentation and worth getting those few extra questions. So if you accepted Olga, who is in her 30s, would you accept someone in my 40s in the group? That was just a rhetorical question, by the way. Thank you very much, and please don't forget to send us the link to the book. That would be useful because we are truly interested. You know, I was actually actively looking for it. I was probably clumsy enough not to find it, but yeah, it would be great to have it. So thank you very much, and also thank you to Christine and Joyce. I think it's super late in Europe, so it must be like 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30. So thanks a lot, and I'm sorry for you know keeping you guys up so late. So thank you everyone, and thanks for the presentation again.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Bye bye. Okay, perfect. So we are supposed to have a break. So let's make it a bit shorter than planned. So let's break for 10 minutes. We have plenty of buffer later, but you know, let's try to be back at so let's say 22. Okay. We are back. As I said, we are a bit behind schedule, but it was good because I thought the discussions on 6, they were very useful, actually. Okay, so now we have a bit of buffer time in the agenda, so it should be okay. So again, you know, I would ask both Olga and Glenn, when you give the reports, to be a bit concise and the questions the same thing. So, you know, going to point number 7 in the agenda, which is first to get the report from the ISOC nominations committee, the ISOC NOMCOM. So Glenn, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll be really short. Okay, so next slide. So this is the team that we put together in terms of the evaluators of the applications. As you can see, a number of us are board members, and thanks to Richard, he suggested a couple of the other names as well, which are excellent evaluators. Next slide. Okay, so typical process that we, again, a piece of promotional literature was created by staff, which we provided to a number of events, and I think it was quite helpful when I went to the OMAC meeting in, to promote the NOMCOM. We tracked our performance through Asana, which was a great tool to keep us on track on terms of what had to be done. That worked out quite well. We closed the nominations back in the 14th, and then we had a series, we had to scramble fairly quickly to actually organize the interviews, and our final selection. Our slates were announced back in February 1st. And then we had the nail-biting period of waiting to see if there was any petitions. And good news is that we didn't have any, and we sent back to the list again on February 25th, the final slate, and then we handed it over to Walid for the election. So this is the breakdown. So we had 3 from North America. We shortlisted 3 from North America in their interview process. 5 from Asia Pacific, 2 were in the final interview process. Latin America was 5, 3 in the interview process. 6 from Europe, 4 interviewed, and 7 from Africa, and only 1 that was interviewed in the process. So out of the 26 applications, we shortlisted 13 for 30-minute interviews. So in terms of the gender representation on the slate, we had 3 females and 4 males. I'm pretty pleased with that. I think we almost have 100% parity, but it was a pretty successful gender effort. They slate by region: 3 from North America, 2 from Asia Pacific, 3 from Latin America, 4 from Europe, and 1 from Africa on the slate. So this is the now into the election mode. We have Tejpal Bide, he's our African representative, and I'm not sure who that second person is. No idea. Harish, and by the way, Harish did a spectacular job on the one-on-one interview that we had. Meki and Mike Goodwin is incredible. He's an icon in the community as well. Susanna, Olga, and Chester all did really well from the chapter slate. Next one. So again, as mentioned, there's no petition, so it was fairly uneventful that way. So observations, 3 members of the interview list didn't attend the designated interview slots. That's a long story, don't have time right now. And some of it I think is maybe a little confidential. You'll see it in the board authorized report for you to get more details. You can talk to me privately. As I mentioned, 30-minute interviews, good gender equity in the slates. Suggestion to all candidates, and this is for the next non-com chair, is please take the effort and do some research. And myself and Kevin and I were talking, well, should we remind them? And I'm sort of the belief that they're big boys and girls. They should really take the time to research if they're going to try to be a board member. Read the plan. Radical thought, but perhaps we should remind them in the future. There was slight modifications in the questions. There were some excellent suggestions in terms of questions were asked in terms of conflict of interest. I think a lot of people don't understand what that means, and that's been incorporated. And there's more details in the written report on suggestions and observations. That's it. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Yes, Haris.
Just one comment. In case you don't know, Mike Godwin is the chap whose name is used as a basis for the Goodwin Law or Godwin Law. Means any discussion disintegrates until it reaches discussion on Nazism. So then at which point the discussion stops. So that law is named after him, and he is the one who crafted it.
Okay, okay.
He claims he didn't.
Yeah, although he claims he did it.
Okay, okay. Interesting. Great. Any questions for Glenn? Okay, so I assume that the handover to the elections committee was done and successfully and everything. Hans-Peter?
Just a quick question. Are you okay with a small number of applications from chapters?
No.
When I said you had to be concise, I didn't mean.
Yeah, if there's any, it's again, I don't want, again, it's mentioned in the report. Yeah, I think the results from the org side was really good. I think, and Olga, you must agree compared to the year before, but I think that's the disappointment. And I totally agree with you. I think we need to do some work there. Absolutely. And I'm not sure, maybe get the word out a little bit better, but some people really don't understand what it is to be a board member, and they don't prepare themselves properly. And
for the interviews, you mean?
Yeah, I think the chapters need some work in terms of putting forward, like Olga obviously is spectacular because she knows the way of things, but some of them were just not that good.
Okay, Olga.
Last year we got more candidates from chapters, more than those for organizations. Again, I have said this before. I think this is a misunderstanding of the role of the board in relation with chapters. So I think maybe we can work on that and explain also the expectations from the chapters to our role in the board is different, what really we have to do. So maybe some education on that could help having better candidates and for those in the board doing the work in the way they expect.
Yeah, so last year we talked about that when Olga was driving this, and this year, we have this again. So can I ask Glenn and Olga to put something together? Because I guess when you mean education, you mean like brief type of description, or right? I mean, you are not thinking of something. Yeah. Okay, so yes.
Comment. Also, I don't know, maybe you had that experience. I know many people that apply, not this year, the year before, for example, and I was chairing, and they get very disappointed when they don't get elected or in the short list. And I explained to them that it's a list, and we do interviews, and we are a group that make decisions based different things. So that also the expectations that created the people who apply, it's sometimes difficult to explain afterwards. I don't know how to solve that.
Yeah. Desiree wanted to say something.
Well, I wanted to add the one thing that worked really well and compared to the previous year is that this time the candidates definitely did select which kind of route they want to run for. So we didn't get applicants saying, yes, I want to be in chapter, or yes, I want to be in both, which make things complicated for the NomCom. So they were really precise.
I mean, because we changed the rules, right?
Yes.
So they couldn't do that anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you think that was a good change then? Okay. Excellent. And then I have Glenn and Pepper.
Yeah, I think that what Olga has mentioned in terms of educating people on terms of what the roles and responsibilities are is important. But I think one of the disappointments we had one person who was supposed to be a volunteer. Unfortunately, she had other work obligations. So other than that, as a whole, like Pepper, John, and Desiree, they were really quite supportive because we worked as a team rather than me just asking all the questions, you know, because we did it intelligently. When we asked a question, we heard what they said, we did a follow-up question to that. So we had some flexibility. There's a lot of questions, but you just can't go through them just one after another. You have to be flexible based on the person too. So I think we captured that. Yeah, there's
yeah, and I saw the question in the questions in the report. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So there's a public version of that report to go out too, which is Kevin. I'm not sure when should that go out.
It's on the website right now.
Okay. Good. Pepper.
Yeah, I had nothing to compare it to since this was the first time I did it, but I thought it actually, number one, Glenn was terrific as chair, and I really appreciated it also because of what Glenn just said, which was, you know, there'd be a question, but then based on the answer, there could be a follow-up instead of just something that was going to go off in a not relevant direction. I thought that was actually quite useful. Mm-hmm. And then there is, not on the OMAC, on the organizational side, but the chapter side, I mean, it was, you know, it's, the range, let's put it that way, of people who, you know, applied that we had to go through, it was quite extreme.
Okay.
And I think any way to provide any structure around not just what the role of the board is, but the types of, maybe the way to think about it is the types of attributes or characteristics or experience of previous, especially for the chapter, previous board members representing chapters with the, you know, had the following types of experience and profiles might help people self-filter. You don't want to be just extreme self-filter. It could be somebody who's great who didn't fit that previous profile, but we had people, some of whom there was unanimous agreement after about 15 seconds, they were not even appropriate. They should not have applied in the first place.
Right.
And, you know, to take the time to actually have to talk to them was a waste of time.
Exactly. So as I said, you know, I mean, as you know, in Board Effect, we have, you know, the chairs of every committee, they basically have a description of, you know, activities to be done during the year, and that's for every committee. So Glenn, I mean, you know, the chairs typically update that before handing it over to the next chair in the AGM. So if you could work together with Olga and of course, I mean, the whole committee in, you know, putting together these thoughts and maybe providing some ideas or even some proposed text, I think that would be perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Glenn, and the whole team. So let's see how the elections go. We are all looking forward to that. Okay, before going into the PIR NomCom report that Olga is going to give, I have an action point for John. So just to note that we have received reports. We usually, as you know, we get reports from several, you know, people, and sometimes, you know, they choose to be in person or remotely, and this time they chose to send a written report. So we got written reports from the IAB and the ITF LLC. So if you could capture that in the meetings, We got written reports from IAB and ITF LLC. And if you guys go to the meeting material page, you will find them there. So please go ahead and read them. And if we have any questions, they are available to answer them. Good. So having said that, then we are moving to point number 8 in the agenda.
We need to accept the report.
Oh, true. Yeah. We accept the report. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thanks. Sorry. So I need someone to move. So Desiree moves and Olga seconds. And we're gonna do
show of hands.
Yeah, show of hands actually. So I'm gonna be asking for yes, no, abstain. So everybody in favor, please raise your hand. No votes, abstentions. So the resolution passes unanimously. Yeah, thanks, John. Okay, and as I said, the next point in the agenda, number 8, is to receive the report from Olga, the PIR NOMCOM. Yeah.
Thank you, Gonzalo. So the PIR NOMCOM committee was composed by Glenn McKnight, Hans-Peter Dittler, Harish Pillai, John Levine, and Olga is the chair. We had a call for candidates for the PIR board. I didn't prepare slides because my internet didn't work and my file was in the cloud. Sorry for that. So I can see it now. So we published the call for candidates in 3 languages, Spanish, English, and French. We had 21 applications, 20 self-nominations, and 1 by a third party, but it was never completed. So we just considered 20 of them. The regional balance was quite okay. 3 candidates from Africa, 4 from Asia Pacific, 4 from Europe, 3 from Latin America and the Caribbean, 2 from Middle East, and 4 from North America. Gender balance, 15 male and 5 female. And one remarkable thing is that the committee was present in all the calls and in all the interviews. So that helps a lot for the work because we could agree directly in the calls. So that was, I appreciate that very much. I know we are all very busy, but that was very, very helpful. So we had previously from PIR received a matrix with the different needs that they would have in candidates or members of the board. And so we work with that as a basis for the questions and for the interviews. And after review, one comment, I received an email yesterday night. I circulated to the members of the committee just for their knowledge. One of the candidates who was not selected in the short list and withdraw her application because she got a new job. So it's not relevant, but it's something to have in mind when we send the final emails to the candidates, not selected candidates. So we met in conference calls and then we did interviews to 4 candidates. And then after making the interviews to the 4 candidates, the committee decided to unanimously to select 3 candidates of the 4. Liz Furr, who is currently the PIR board member and chair, Keith Davidson, and Greg Kapfer. So the terms for the 3 of them is 3 years. And we also suggested some changes to the process. Starts with the interviews earlier. One comment about that is that we decided to have a longer period for the applications, just maybe having more candidates. So this is why we started, bless you, after a little bit late. Try to spread the news about the call for candidates more widely to receive a larger pool of candidates. We received only 21 or 20. Ask if PIR usually promotes the call for candidates. If not, they should do that, or they could do that. And try to bring candidates from different ecosystems. This final comment generated some other comments in the list. Which other ecosystems? I don't know if other members of the committee would like to add any comment about that. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah, let me react to the previous bullet because when I was reading the report, they ask if PIR usually promotes the call for candidates, and if not, ask them to do it. Why didn't we ask them?
I had the idea that we were the only one promoting it in the website. I'm not sure if they did that. I cannot answer. I don't have much more information about
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay. Good. Yeah. We will bring it up in tomorrow's meeting with them, and then we get on the same page on how to do it next.
I asked Kevin at a point of the process if it could be more visible, or it was not in the website, in ISOC website. So I wanted it to be more.
Yeah. So anything that has to do with us, I mean, the same as before with Glenn, I mean, just please update the materials that they will go to the next PIR non-com chair. But with respect to PIR, I will take an action point to discuss it with them tomorrow.
Just a follow-up comment, and again, in the same way that we spoke about the non-com, but this is more specific. We had several candidates that really had no good candidates as professionals and colleagues, but they didn't have the experience and the knowledge for this board, which is more specific, and it's also related with the registry that runs the business. So maybe that information should be more precise when people decide to apply or not, because then people get the feeling that they were not selected and they don't understand why.
Yeah. Okay, Haris.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up on what the last two bullet points, that was the last bullet point is something that I brought up in our final meeting, because my question is, since this is a fairly narrow spectrum of experience in terms of whom we're targeting to be on a board of this nature, would it not be better that we also target the advertising and the outreach to the guys who run all the various TLDs, all the national registries? I mean, that means we explicitly send out to those people. I mean, we never know who would come up, because I don't think, other than the NZ TLD, I don't think there's any other TLD people applied, which is kind of.
No, there was a, sorry.
Was there?
We had a candidate who was actually currently on the staff at a CCTLD who I would have interviewed, except it was an obvious conflict because he was running.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was one person. Yeah. But the thing is, we didn't get that many at all, which should be probably a suggestion that maybe the information doesn't get out that far enough, or that's why the phrase, the word ecosystem is used. So the ecosystem in which, bless you, would be useful to look at. Thank you.
Gonzalo?
Yes, so Pepper and Hans-Peter.
Quick question. So given what Harish said, what do we mean by candidates from different ecosystems? If what we want to focus on are people who actually have experience, right, in this ecosystem, what does that mean?
Thank you. I think what it particularly means is people with experience outside of the Anglosphere, or outside of North America and Western Europe and Australia and New Zealand.
So that's what geographic.
Yeah.
As opposed to different ecosystems.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. Given the reality, I mean, sort of, we're going to get much more percentage growth in Africa and Asia than we are in. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And then
also important is that the candidate has business understanding, not on maybe in a registry or not, but not just knowing about internet governance and policy, but specific about a business related with the internet.
When you update the material for the next chair, please make it clear what we mean by ecosystems, because people were confused, or something along those lines, as John was clarifying. I think that would be, yeah, that's probably much clearer than ecosystems. Hans-Peter.
And just to clarify it a little bit, it's okay to look for or to look into other registries, TLDs or whatever, to find people. But at the same time, you must make it very, very clear that we consider it a conflict of interest if they are still staying in a position at one of those organizations. So don't attract them and then say, oh, sorry, you can't do both.
Yep. That was my first thought when you guys were talking about the ecosystem thing. Okay, any other? Yeah, Glenn. Sorry. Yeah, Glenn.
Yeah, going back to the first start to interviews earlier, I'm just wondering about the logistics and if there's going to be a problem because the nomcom finishes fairly late in the game as well. So will this be a problem for the next nomcom if you move the interviews closer, because it's a a lot of work for Kevin to organize all the interviews and stuff. So what are you looking at, a week, 2, 3 weeks from the timeline you started this year?
I don't have an answer for your question. What we decided at the previous stage is that we wanted a longer period so people could apply. So this is why interviews were later in the calendar. We should reorganize and try not to make Kevin crazy with all the interviews and align one process with the other one, not to be overlapped. That's my general comment.
Because I fear it was my idea, or it was my intervention to write this into the sentence. What I meant with doing the interviews a little bit earlier meant also starting with the application period a little bit earlier. So the whole process moved 2 or 4 weeks earlier to have just more time to schedule the interviews and still the same time for applications.
Good. Thanks for your intervention. Okay, good. If we don't have any other questions, we're going to move to approving the selected slate. Do we have any questions?
We need to accept the report and then vote on the slate.
That's true. I always forget to accept the reports. Yeah. Thanks. Good that we have John here. So first, let's accept the report. We don't have any further questions.
Okay. Moved by Glenn.
Okay, good. So who moves? Glenn moves. Harry seconds. And the same thing, show of hands. So yes, sorry.
I think I would like to abstain from this. So okay, wait.
Okay, so just raise your hand when I go for abstain, and I will note that. So yes votes. No. Abstentions. Okay, so the resolution passes with 11 yeses and 1 abstention. Excellent. Thank you. And yeah, I know I'm giving John 1 minute to capture this.
Got it.
I'm not amnesic or anything.
I got it.
Okay, so the second resolution, which is what I was trying to get to before, which is to approving the actual slate. So Olga already mentioned it before, but you can mention it again. And the idea is basically to approve it. So could you please mention the names?
Sure. The names is Liz Furr, Keith Davidson, and Greg Tapfer.
Okay, thank you. And I guess most of you know all of them, actually. Okay, good. So I need someone to move. Olga, Pepper seconds. And again, we're going to do a show of hands. So yes votes. No votes. Abstentions. So the resolution passes with 11 positive votes and 1 abstention.
Okay.
Yeah, Desiree abstained. Okay, Glenn, please.
You did a great job, by the way.
Yeah. Hans-Peter.
Quick question. When will go the names public?
They already have.
I mean, this is a public session.
So now it's public.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is being broadcast. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure how many people we have watching, but it's public. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, but I mean, you will take care of communicating with them, right? Perfect. Okay, good. And we are meeting the PIR board tomorrow. So in any case, we are all local here. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. So that concludes point number 9 in the agenda, and now we are only a few minutes behind. So thanks for speeding things up. That was great. Okay, so now we have point number 10 in the agenda, which is the proposal to update the committee charters by Desiree. They have been working within the governance committee, and you guys have a proposal in the materials. So I hope you all had a look at it. I myself had some comments on that. So I was talking to Desiree and Sean, that, I mean, he was also working on that. So, we have allocated 25 minutes now. If we don't get like to finish it, we can actually, work on that also in the executive session this afternoon and approve it tomorrow. So that's okay. So you want to introduce the topic, Desiree?
Yes, thank you, Gonzalo. So this is the proposal how to update all board standing committees charter. As you know, one of the main tasks of the governance committee is to, from time to time, review the ISO governance documents and make recommendations to the board to adopt those recommendations. And this is one of those. So what we have here is, and you also have seen it in the board book, and you have also seen it in the mailing list, we have a proposal whereby we suggested all the committee charters become more unified. So we have 6 elements that we'd like to include into all of the charters. There's also some specific changes to specific charters. So, but the overall one is called the text that we can go through now and then take on specific changes later on. And as you said, we may want to maybe make some changes. That has been no feedback on the list. So I presume that everyone is fine with the old
This was
committee
distributed
charter.
quite late, so it may be that people didn't have time to.
Yes, I think for the benefit, it was distributed last Wednesday. So it's exactly a week from 1 week from now. So. So if we want to go just through the old committee charter to get everyone to speed, the proposed text for adoption is as follows. I think I will have, Kevin, do you have that up on the screen?
It is up on the screen, yes.
Okay, so I put my glasses on. The idea is that yeah, there's 6 short things that we'd like each of the charter to have, and one of it is actually the authority resources. That paragraph comes from the original governance committee charter, which gives all the chairs an ability to have enough resources to retain special counsel, experts, and consultants as the committee deems appropriate. And ISOC shall provide for appropriate funds as determined by the committee for the payment of the fees and expenses of any such special counsel, experts, or consultants, as well as all ordinary administrative costs incurred by the committee and its individual members that are necessary and appropriate in performing their duties.
Where are you reading?
So what I'm reading is the authority and resources part.
The comments on.
So there are 6 points that we want to insert in all of the charters, and the first one is on authority and resources. There's a preamble as well. What are you looking at?
But that's already there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so why are we reading the whole thing? Oh, I thought they were going to change.
Not all the committees have this preamble or this paragraph in their charters. So that's why we're trying to make them all look the same. And
okay, so I'm not understanding this. So if this is a change, why is not marked as a change?
This is the change that will be incorporated in all the committees' charters.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's
I
not
understand,
marked.
but I mean, we already have a common part for committee charters.
So this is the common part.
Yeah, so why is this not marked in red if this is a new addition?
It's not a new addition.
Yeah, that was my point, that it was already there, right?
Sorry, I'm looking at it.
Is it or is it not a change? That's my question. I mean, I can go in a second to check on the mail list.
This is not a change.
Okay.
This is not a change, but this is the proposed structure of how all the committee charters will have all the individual structure parts.
So in each charter, this text will be
exactly. So the only change is maybe we should just go through the changes then to make it through the red line to make it easier and quicker is the meetings part. And the only change here is that we said that the chair of the committee usually calls for a committee meeting. However, any member of the committee could also convene or call for a meeting. So that's change number 1. And then we'll go. Are you following now, Gonzalo?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just, yeah, okay, here. So the authority and resources is already
Yes,
on the
it's
web.
already, yeah.
So it's not a change.
That's right.
So are we on the same page? Because I got kind of conflicting views on that. So the point is, like, last time we did that, like last year or 2 years ago, we already had a common part. So I'm hearing that some people think this is a new thing. It's not. And that was what I was getting confused. So this is already on the web page, and that's why this document with track changes is correct. Okay. Okay. Good. Which is good. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, I was reading the whole structure
the whole
document.
thing. That's why I was confused. Sorry about that.
I appreciate the clarification. So the only red text changes are the meetings part. Who can convene a meeting?
So then let's go through the red part. So here, the first thing I was asking Sean yesterday, and but I would like to ask John, because we were not sure. So the red text refers to special meeting. Where is that defined? Because Sean and I, we thought that that's kind of like a term that is defined somewhere, but we are not sure.
So the special meetings are also in the bylaws.
So it's defined in the bylaws. I mean, I want just to confirm that. So
let me find the paragraph.
Special board meetings. Special board meetings.
Yeah.
So it's section 6 in the bylaws, and it says special board meetings. A special board meeting, special meetings of the board may be called at any time by the executive, by the chair of the board, by the president of the society, or by a majority of the members of the board then in office. Special meetings may be held at such time and place as designated in the call for the meeting. In absence of such designation in the call for a meeting, the chair of board may designate the place of special meeting. Now, for committees, that also applies, and it's basically the chair of the committee. So it's because there's meetings that we have to have every year, like the AGM, and then there are other meetings that you can have. So
but the bylaws, they refer to a special meeting of the committee as well.
So yes, so the way the structure works in the bylaws, it's a bunch of stuff about the whole board, and then it says there's another thing about committees, and it says unless otherwise noted, all of that applies as well.
Okay. No, I mean, and what I'm trying to get at is that here we are saying that any member of the committee can call for a meeting, but in a couple of committees we are saying that you need 2 people, right? So what I'm trying to get is that we are consistent with the bylaws.
So it says anyone. So anyone, right? And then the ones that require 2 are the ones where we have external board members. So it's all the nomination committees. So the idea is that we have people that are external that we've picked, like Chris Wood on the ISOC nominations committee. And if we ever have somebody external on the PIR, my assumption is it's a catch to make sure you have to have 2 people colluding to have a meeting that wanted to have a meeting and not tell anybody, right? So the idea is that you have to have 2 there. But I think it's okay to say anyone can do it, and then later you actually make it more restrictive by saying 2.
Yeah, but I mean, but to be clear, it's not that they can call for a meeting and not tell anyone. So the announcement requirement is still there. So yeah, exactly. So the question is, do we want that, or we want to basically get anyone from any committee can call for a meeting? So that's the decision point we have to make.
So I think what we discussed is that we want anyone and any member of any committee being able to call for a meeting.
So then we would need to remove from the ISOC NOMCOM and from the PIR NOMCOM that restriction, which by the way, that's what I would do.
Yes.
Any objections to doing that? Okay, so Sean, can you make a note, or you want me? Okay, so Sean is gonna take care of that. Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, that was a good discussion. Okay, so that was the first thing.
That's the first thing of the meetings.
Go ahead.
So the next part is the chair appointments. So what happens is that all the chairs are elected at the AGM, and we wanted to make sure that that is for all of the committees. Although some of the committees, like election committees, committee gets formed and members get confirmed afterwards. Still, at the AGM, we would elect and nominate the trustee to be the election chair. That's the that's the little amendment here.
Yeah. So then, if we go, I mean, I've been trying to make sure that what we put here is consistent with all the charters. So if we go, for example, to the NOMCOM, the ISOC NOMCOM, there's an addition in red that says the member of the committee shall be appointed by the board at a time of its choosing. But we are already saying that here. So probably we don't need to repeat it in the NOMCOM, for example, the NOMCOM charter.
So the NOMCOM chair should be, you're talking about the PIR one?
No. If we go
Or
to the
just
ISO committee's, proposal. So if
yeah.
I don't know if Kevin wants to go there, but anyway, this in the composition section, there's an addition that says the members of the committee shall be appointed by the board at a time of its choosing. But that seems redundant with what we are adding here for all the committees.
Yes, that's the unique charter because the members are elected afterwards. So it is redundant, and it could be. This is very specific to that particular committee. So
yeah, so the chair appointment now in the all committee charter says basically we're going to pick them. Unless otherwise noted, they're also going to be appointed there.
Yeah.
This is the one for the nominations committee that we do.
Okay, because we appoint them later, right? Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I guess it's clear.
Some clarifications that would make it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess it's clear enough. Yeah.
Basically, you get the freedom to do it afterwards, but by saying and keeping the text as it is.
Okay.
And okay, so what's the?
Yeah, I think that's clear enough. Yeah, and then the committee report.
So the committee reports, we also added this part to say that there is a duty on the chair to produce a report, at least at annual report. We know that some other committees like finance committee produce quarterly reports, but to make it more consistent, and I think it's better to keep it as an annual report. Therefore, it refers to all the charters.
Yeah, and that's also like, I would like to ask people, because currently we don't do that. Let's say for the compensation committee, we don't write a report, and for the executive committee, we don't write a report. So there's a set of committees that we never write a report. Do we want to force that for every committee or not? The proposal is basically to do it for every committee.
So we discussed this about the compensation committee, and this, even if we had it report, it won't be public, but it would be written.
So I think that in some respects, it's just saying, hey, we did our job. Like we met, we had a couple meetings, we discussed the things that we were supposed to in the charter. That's it. That's the full extent of your report. In finance, you may want to go more to say we did these things quarterly. We noted these things that went up or down, decisions that we made to help people for next year. But for some of the committees, would be almost entirely confidential, you could just say we had a meeting. It's just to show that there's like a heartbeat going on, that we didn't drop the ball for external people to be like, oh, you have all these committees, what the hell did they do? Like,
right.
They did meet, they did do something. Because otherwise we should just get rid of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hans-Peter.
Yeah. Even for a committee like the executive committee, which is only created if we need it somewhere, I think it makes sense to have a one-sentence report.
Yeah, the report is like, we never met.
We never had something to do in this year, continue next year.
Okay, yeah. No, when we add overhead, I always want to make sure that people are on the same page. Yeah. Any objections to doing that? Okay, good, perfect.
Yeah, so this is the end of the changes proposed for the all committees charter.
Okay, good. So the next one is the PIR. So if you go to the PIR NOMCOM.
Yeah, so there's some specific changes now. So if we go one by one, we can go first through the PIR.
To speed things up, because I guess everybody has read it, maybe if somebody has comments, we can go specifically to the points.
Yeah, if anybody has any objections
just
to any of the points.
So I think, the liaison with the PIR board of directors, that's like a no-brainer. So
yes, I think that's acceptable. And the last thing what has been added here is the conflict of interest, to say that any member of the PIR nominations committee should not have a conflict of interest with PIR or any of its subsidiaries.
Yeah, which I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Then we already agreed to remove the 2 or more members, so that goes. And yeah, Sean already took care of that.
I'll send you updated ones tonight.
Yeah, good. Any other questions on this charter? Okay, moving along.
Let's go to the next one, the nominations, or the next one is finance. Okay. For the finance committee.
Finance committee, I
see no, there's only one
I think
change.
they are all good changes.
Again, we have the that a little bit of a qualification that all members should be able to read the financial statements, and a more qualification on what the finance committee members what qualities they should have, which I think is also a no-brainer. And the second one was about the special conflict of interest.
Which is the material change. So maybe, we can introduce that. So the proposal is to add, the member must not receive, this is the finance committee again, it's not audit, because for audit we always had special conflict of interest rules. This is for finance, which would read, the member must not receive or accept directly or indirectly any consultant, advisory, or other compensatory fees from ISOC or its subsidiaries or affiliates, except for that which is incident to serving on the board of the committee. For the committee, I never know if we have affiliates, but John has suggested to keep the text, so I guess it's okay. Are people okay with these special conflict of interest rules for the finance committee?
I would think affiliate includes the chapters. How that would that be?
What?
There are chapters. Would affiliate be a chapter? And would that? I would probably say.
Oh, affiliate. Okay, I don't know. But anyway, I mean, we are using that text everywhere. So okay, so I guess we are good. The governance committee charter, there's no changes proposed, so we are good.
Yep.
And then the ISOC nominations committee.
Well, there's one change here in the composition, and that is something that we've discussed, and we also needed to tidy up in bylaws, and that is that the president and the CEO will not be serving as a member of the committee. That's the NOMCOM.
Okay,
are we looking at a NOMCOM now?
So now I understand why I was reacting to before. So I mean, it's a minor point. So we said the chair of the committee shall be appointed at the AGM, and then we say the members of the committee. We should see the rest of the members of the committee. So that was what I mean, it's a silly thing, but that was what I was reacting to before. Yeah, thanks. And then I think, again, I mean, I'm trying to dwell on the special conflict of interest, because I don't want anyone to be surprised with this, which is that the proposal to change, it talks about trustees and then officers of the corporation. And I was wondering if instead of officer, we want to talk about employees, because in the audit committee, we talk about employees as well. So it would be the first sentence. So the first sentence says, the committee shall include at least 2 people who are neither trustees nor officers of the corporation. So my proposal would be not only office, I mean, like, I don't think we want to have staff in the ISOC nomination committee. Do we agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so then, Shan, if you can replace officers with employees?
Well, no, you need all 3, because we have had 3.
We need all of them, yes.
We have had it.
Yeah. It's not, sorry, you're completely right. It's not replace, it's
to adding, it's to add.
Question would be, in terms of the staff, they're also, so there's full-time employees, but then they're contingent contractors who are, so because the conflict of interest should also apply, right? I mean, if there's an ISOC contractor, right, shouldn't this apply?
Yes.
It does, frankly, all of these things would apply to a contractor working for Facebook. I assume the same thing at Ericsson.
Right. No, you're right. Mm-hmm.
In other words, if they're being paid by ISOC, it should apply. I mean, Andrew, do you have a thought? Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't audit committee right? So it does say for employee, including CEO and CFO, because those are the officers, right? So
No, Gonzalo and and you're an officer.
Yeah, I understand. But there's other people.
No,
we had this conversation with David Frolio, who's our general counsel, and he did consult our law firm to see whether we could keep officer in the audit committee wording, for example, because John would be precluded of being a chair of the audit committee because he's an officer of ISOC, being the secretary, as well as Sean being a treasurer, as well as Gonzalo being the chair.
Yeah, I mean, usually the corner case is actually like we had with Scott. That is a trustee. I mean, he was not a trustee, but he was an officer. So that was kind of what Pepper was referring to. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, Sean, I think you got the comment. So we can probably edit the text offline. We don't have to do real time.
So you want to change that first sentence. The committee shall include at least 2 people who are neither trustees nor employees.
Nor consultants.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we all agree that we need to include employees there because they shouldn't be picked, and then contractors as well. Yeah. And Sean, I mean, the reason why I'm saying that probably it makes sense not to capture that in the same sentence. So probably it makes sense to say that, you know, this type of people cannot serve in the committee, and then just to say separately, and we need 2, you know, 2 people who are not trustees, because maybe, I mean, including everything in the same sentence may be a bit, you know, unclear. But I mean, the point is, like, we know what to write, so I mean, we will go offline and write it. You know, it's, I mean, we don't need to do. Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. Yes, Harish.
Just curious. I mean, we are saying not currently employed. So if they have just stepped down, if they're no longer an employee, will they qualify at that point? And
Yeah.
how much time do you need to wait? Is it the next day or the next minute? Or
I think it's the next minute.
What would
right?
it be? Yeah. I mean, this question may come up at some future time. We don't know.
Yeah.
So we just need
So
to.
there's only one qualification of who can run for the board, and there is a, but that's a separate issue from the charter committees, and that is there should be at least a 1-year cycle before the ex-employee of ISOC should run for the board of trustees. But that's a different thing. But
Yep.
here there's nothing.
But this is for the committee itself.
Yes.
So that might be something we may want to think about, or even if it's valid. Right?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, in my opinion,
It'd be your suggestion, Harish.
I'm just wondering whether whether it's useful to put a timeline, because I feel that might be useful. Otherwise, you know, someone might just leave, you know, ISOC and then be on the committee and do whatever needed. I mean, but
that wouldn't be a problem, right?
Yeah,
because
the
if,
chair
I mean, like
picks
the thing is, like, you would be selecting ISOC's board, basically. Well, not directly, but let's say.
Yeah, but you are in that process. You are in that.
But
system.
you are not an employee anymore.
Yeah, you're not employed but you were, and so I mean, it's.
What's the problem?
No, it's a matter of just timing. It's just I'm just wondering, you know, from a time perspective. I mean, it just something triggers in my mind is a corner case scenario to catch us off guard.
Okay.
You know, by not having a little bit of a buffer. Even if it is a small buffer, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, if it is like next day or the very next minute, I quit now and I'm on the committee. There may be whatever, maybe there's no big deal, but something tells me there's something that I'm missing out. So,
I mean, like, think about that, because I mean, we will basically edit the whole thing this evening. So if you can come up with something that basically it's not good, but maybe we can add that. Yeah. Okay. And then there were no changes proposed. I mean, the changes proposed are okay because we are just reflecting that. So if we move to the elections committee charter. My only comment was in the special conflict of interest when we say no committee members may be elected or selected, blah, blah, blah. We had a big discussion about that because that was a part that was super unclear in the past. And we had some text that was adding something like, note that, you know, these guys are basically, you know, starting their term next year. So I think we should copy that text, which is just adding a sentence from the NOMCOM charter into the elections charter. So it's just so that we use the same language, basically. Yeah. And those, I mean, then there's no comments, no changes proposed for the audit committee charter. So those were all my comments.
So elections, I do want to pass down elections. Yeah. So what you're saying is that in the elections committee's charter, you want to also add text from
the NOMCOM,
from the nominations committee charter.
Yeah.
This is well, that's what I'm trying to go.
Which was saying is that the last sentence in the special conflict of interest rules from the NOMCOM, which says, note that those elected or selected to serve as trustees during the year will typically start their new term the following year. So that was the clarification that we.
So we had this person who was trying to serve on the elections committee at the same time run for the board. And that's why this sentence has been added to preclude people serving on the elections committee, resigning, and then deciding to change their mind at the same year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have anything against that. I'm just saying that since last year we added that sentence and we agreed on that, for consistency, we should just add it there. It's just a copy paste error. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, and
I was just trying to figure out which sentence.
yeah, you got it. Okay. And I apologize for doing this in real time, but since the changes were distributed like 1 week ago, we didn't have time to do this. And doing this now, I mean, it allows us to approve it without having any vote. So I think it's worthwhile. Okay. Anyone else has any comments on this? Okay, so we have only one pending edit. So Sean and I will work offline, and then we will pass it, either this evening or tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, so that concludes all the proposed changes, and if we agree on them, we could, as you say, vote on this either.
Yeah, I think it will be a formality just to have the
yeah.
actual text in front of people. So it's
Sure.
just this part, and let's do it. Yeah, and
Great.
thanks for the good work, because as you know, I mean, I like to keep all the charters current, and since we have been kind of changing things, I think this is very useful to have more than a pair of eyeballs just going through everything. So
Yeah.
The actual process that I followed was actually analyzing each section and like, why is that there and why is that not there? And then when you started to compare against them, what was in one and what was in the other, it's like, well, why is that here and not there? And so that just kind of led to the whole, why don't we just make them a little bit more uniform? And so then it was helpful to have this all section where you could just kind of dump stuff up, and the more and more that was common. So it turned out to be all right. I don't know what you'll do next year, but enjoy.
No, but I think, I mean, last year we did an editorial pass already. So with this kind of, refining of the charters, I think we are in a good shape.
I think we have to do it from time to
Yeah,
time. So next year, probably don't need to do it. So thank you, Sean, and all the members of the committee on going through these changes and proposing them.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Desiree, and thanks, Sean, and the rest of the team. Okay, good. So as I said, the resolution, we will pass it later when we have the text in front of everyone. So now we are moving to point number 11, which is the update on organizational membership that Andrew will give. So as you know, we were discussing like a year ago or 2 years ago, I mean, at some point, 1.5 years ago, about this. So I have asked, Andrew to give an update so that people are aware of what's going on. So Andrew, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks. So I guess you all know that there was this effort over a year ago, and it was not that successful. We had a lot of pushback on the proposal. The staff sent an update to organizational members saying, we're not going to do this, and we're going to fix this, and you'll hear more consultations. So the current state of affairs is that no changes have been made to organizational member rules or anything like that. The follow-on effort then is, okay, well, why do people want to be organizational members in the first place, and what would that mean, and so on. There is currently an effort underway. We sent out an announcement just the other day about this. That is an effort with a consulting firm in order to understand what the offering is to our membership, what kinds of things are we doing, what things are we not doing, and so on. There was some internal work with the staff in order to understand what staff think about this, and now there is an effort underway to understand what the members themselves think about this. It will be interesting to learn whether there are differences there. I think that that's part of the exercise. This engagement has only just started, so I don't have any results to tell you or anything like that, but that's what we're doing right now. I do expect that this is going to result in something, but I don't have preconceptions about exactly what it's going to be, because the whole idea is that you not prejudge that when you're asking people what they think. So I don't have much more to say about it, but I wanted everybody to understand that that's where we are in this process, and I'm obviously happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. And I think that's a very useful exercise, actually, understand our value proposition and taking that as a base for any update we want to do in the membership structure. Desiree.
I just wanted to echo, there's a great initiative and support, and really good to see this happening. So thank you, Andrew.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one comment there is, I appreciate how quickly people were willing to say, oh, these changes aren't going to work, and back up and fix them.
So we got, pretty strong pushback. It would be.
But there are organizations that would say, there are organizations that would say, too bad, we're going to do it anyway, and I'm glad this is not one of them.
Well, me too. So I'm pleased about that. But the other thing that I would say is that there is a general feeling that we need to provide a pretty strong value proposition to our membership generally. And I think that this is something, some of the questions that we had earlier in this session today led naturally to that sort of conclusion. So I really do hope that, we will get a strong response from the organization members, and that we get, lots of good feedback, because I think there's quite a lot of work to do here. In the longer term, I've already had some feedback from somebody that, that this looks like another one-off, and the Internet Society does all these one-offs all the time and so on. And I think that there will be some value in the future in trying to undertake regular and formal feedback efforts among the various communities with whom we deal directly. I think that is a valuable thing to do, but it's difficult to start with just sort of ordinary surveys, because I think there's enough of a gap right now that it's hard to know what to do with a quantitative survey at this point. So I expect that in the future, what we'll see are sort of satisfaction surveys of the sort that you would normally expect. But until we get to the point where we've got something to do, with a bad number, for instance, it would not be clear what to do with that in the current circumstances. So we've actually got to do something a little bit more qualitative right now.
Okay, I see Kevin going somewhere. Yeah, thank you. I was trying to figure out what was going on. Pepper.
No, I do agree. It's at this point, what's needed is qualitative. We tried that previously when it was under sort of expanding organizational membership, and there was somebody actually on staff doing that, and that did not lead. And it was they were qualitative interviews. It didn't lead to any concrete, suggestions that you're able to take forward. So, but I think the difference was that was focusing on value to organizational members, right? And how, in order to expand membership, as opposed to a more fundamental, what's the value proposition? Because if you have the fundamental value proposition, one would hope it would lead to membership, but it was not. With the focus, I assume, with this MCI interview, by the way, thank you for sending that out to everybody, is not just going to be about expanding membership, but really the value proposition. Although it's kind of squishy, and I'm just wondering whether any of the results from the previous attempt are being made available to the consultant.
Yeah, so I think that they have reviewed those materials. There is a reason that we decided to use an outside firm for this, the previous effort was led internally, and there is a difficulty with an organization that is transforming if it tries to do those interviews itself. That any organization is naturally going to have blind spots about itself, and so you automatically fail to ask certain kinds of critical things that you need. And so this is why we've engaged an outside firm to help with this.
Hans-Peter and Desiree.
I really hope that this incarnation of this effort leads to a better result than before. And I really believe, not only hope, but believe that we are on the right way. I was invited by whatever selection criteria to be part of one of the first group interviews. And I got the feeling from the MCI consultant I heard there that they are really doing, let's say, a very fundamental stock taking including views from nearly everybody inside stuff. And it was really interesting to hear what's coming up. And I'm looking forward to the report.
Yes, so I believe we have done such an effort or undertaken such an effort maybe 3 years ago when we hired a consulting firm to look at this. And I do still think there is a value in doing it outside rather than staff because of these blind spots. So I was also impressed with the structure of the interview. It was, the questions were to the point, and I hope this will result in some creative ideas where the members just want to have, you know, from the basic ones, a button on the side, the member of ISOC, to something that is describing the values, from something very, you know, small to something, you know, that is going to be really appreciated by members. So I think we need to reiterate and continue working on it.
Good. Okay, thanks for the comments, and please keep us updated on this. I mean, obviously everybody is very interested. And then let's go to the next point, which is agenda point number 12. And again, it's Andrew. So we're gonna receive an update on the multi-stakeholder project that, as you may remember, we approved some funds to it. I think it was 1 year ago. So Andrew is gonna give us a quick update on what happened with that and what's the current status.
So this is, this project was funded by board designated funds, and you're getting some money back. At the beginning of the year, Larry Strickling, who is sort of the fundamental person around whom this was structured, came to me and said, well, I think I'm gonna retire. And so he retired. And we, you know, we're sad to see him go. There was some value in the things that he was doing. We got some very good feedback. We got some quite good results from it. Where the workshops were held, we had good responses, and we had some positive feeling about the material. What we concluded, however, was that we were not really in a position to take the work much further forward. That a lot of the work that had been done to date was kind of dependent on Larry himself, and it wasn't actually at the point where we felt, oh, this is easily taken to the next step. And then the natural question was there a, you know, was there another candidate or something like that around who would be able to take that along and push it a little further? Our conclusion was no. We didn't have that person available. We didn't have somebody who obviously could take this and who had managed to do it. And because there had been a small enough number of these things, you know, there were some recordings of it and so on, but what we didn't have was enough evidence that another party involved in it, was picking it up and taking it on and successfully implementing these programs. We had engaged somebody in Africa, for instance, to do some of these things, and we were hopeful that that was going to, that would be the basis on which this would be on a solid foundation. But we didn't have good luck with that. So that's one thing. There were some other pieces to the effort. There was an academic research portion to this. There was a sort of index of them. That didn't get very far, and so it wasn't really complete. It's not really in any kind of position to be used. We have a fair volume of materials that were returned to us from Larry, and obviously we're putting them aside and sorting them in order to figure out which of these things can be reused. But it turns out that there wasn't a great deal, and given other changes in the organization, other things around our internet leadership program, around the organizational structure itself, we came to the conclusion that we really just couldn't support this thing. So I concluded that, given the fact of the retirement, there wasn't a way to continue with this, and that's why we stopped it. So that activity has not actually undertaken any additional effort except for wind down activities since January, and the remainder of the funds, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but Sandy will be able to tell you whenever we get around to that. So those will come back as monies, obviously, that are designated for one purpose. They are not spent, and therefore they'll be available for the board to direct to something else.
Yeah, we were repurposing some funds last time. So yeah. Yeah, thanks. I think that was useful to close the loop because, you know, several people were asking about that. So I think it's good. Hans-Peter.
Thank you very much for this clarification. I'm very glad to hear some background information. If it would not be on the agenda, I would have asked the question. I hadn't had the time during the finance committee and the later voting on the resetting or rebranding of the money. So okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, good. Perfect. So thanks a lot, Andrew, for both status updates. So this concludes our morning session. So now we're gonna break for lunch, and we have a hard stop. Well, a hard start actually, a hard stop for the lunch at 1 because we will get the Japanese chapter to present, and they're gonna do that remotely. So we're gonna convene here in 1 hour and 7 minutes. So, you know, for remote participants, in 1 hour and 7 minutes, we will resume with the presentation by the Japanese chapter. So thank you. Okay, so welcome back. We are here sharp at 1 o'clock local time, and we're gonna have a report by our Japan chapter. So we have Tomohiro Fujisaki, right? So he's going to be driving the presentation. We have him remotely. He couldn't join locally, but it's great actually to have you there and be able to share, you know, what are you guys doing and the status of your charter. So thanks a lot for joining, and please, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you so much for introducing me. And I'm Tomohiro Fujisaki, the chair of the ISOC Japan chapter. And first of all, I'm very sorry not to go into the meeting room this time. And also, I thank you so much for giving me this great opportunity to speak about the ISOC Japan chapter activities. Okay, let me start the presentation. Okay, can I control this? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, first slide. This slide shows you about ISOC JP. We are ISOC Japan chapter, and just now in Japan, only one chapter is available, and we established in August 1994, and we are one of the first chapter where then the ISOC introduced the chapter system. But unfortunately, due to the low activities, we are marked as a chapter need to Japanization, and we reappointed in the 2012. And the number of the members is now 325. And the picture below is the certification of the chapter at the beginning of our us. Okay, next slide, please. And this slide shows the current ISOC JP officers, and chair is me, and Mr. Kaname Nishizuka is the vice chair, and he's mainly involved in the IETF activities, and the program chair is Ms. Mitani Kumi, and she has been involved in the local community engagement. And also the secretary is Dr. Takahiro Nemoto, and he have been teaching in the university and involved in the education. And also the treasurer is Atsushi Endo. He is the new officer from this year, and he has been joining the ICANN as a domain industry people. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and this slide shows the current ISOC JP committees and working groups. And we have one committee, usual committee, program committee, and this committee is led by the Mitani-san and planned and organized the event of ISOC Japan chapter. And currently we have 3 temporary committees. One is the ISOC JP nominating committee, and the Internet Hall of Fame nomination committee. And also we have the one very active committee, with Internet Standardization Promotion Committee, and this committee is hardly working for the IETF promotion and so on. And also we have several working groups and the IETF education working group, and also ISOC Japan chapter, IETF published working group. And then we are part of the ICANN at large community and marked as an at large structure in Japan. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and this slide shows the summary of ISOC Japan chapter activities. And we have been organizing many events for the local community, such as workshops. These workshops is mainly related to the ISOC mission, such as privacy or the IoT issues and so on. And also we have been conducting the IETF update meeting. As many of you know, IETF meeting, on-site meeting, we have 3 times in a year, and every time after the IETF meeting, we have been holding the update meeting to introduce IETF activities to Japanese community. And also we have been collaborating with the Japanese internet-related organizations and support many events, and such as the IPv6 Summit and the Spam Workshop and so on. And in the IPv6 Summit, the Dr. Esaki-san, board member, we asked Esaki-san to present many IPv6-related issues at this summit. And also many DNS-related events and the Internet Week we support. And as activities, we translate some important materials for Japanese community. And also, as I said, we are acting as a ALS, authorized structure in Japan. And also we conducted many activities, such as state about the blocking, or to conduct the education for the local community and so on. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. And from these few slides, I will introduce about our activities in more detail. First slide shows the IETF update meeting. As I said, we hold this meeting 3 times in the year after every IETF. And last year, we have 3 IETF update meetings. And you can see the number of attendees on this slide, and over 50 people have been attending this event. And of course, we will have the next IETF, and we started to prepare the meeting for the next IETF. Next slide, please. And also related to the IETF, we have been operating the Slack channel for the IETF attendees. You can see the display image, the right. And also we have been holding the local gathering in every IETF meeting. In that local gathering, Japanese attendees meet and talk with many issues on that gathering. Okay, next slide, please. And another activity is about the symposium and so on. We have many symposiums, and this is a little bit old, but we held symposium for Professor Goto's celebration for the Internet Hall of Fame in 2017. Okay, we have many attendees for this meeting, and also we have the celebration party after this event. Next, please. And this slide shows the information sharing in the Japanese community. We translated many English materials, Japanese or local community, such as the Internet Society's document. This shows the content about content blocking, and we have been translating IETF newcomers tutorial document in Japanese, and this is a collaboration effort with the IETF EDU team, and the Japanese version of the tutorial document is IETF on the IETF site, and also we translated the video. What is an IXP, and you can see the Japanese version of this video from this URL. Okay, next please. Okay, and of course we are one of the ISOC chapter, and we have been joining the ISOC chapter event. And last year and previous year we have been joining the chapter workshop. The chapter workshop we have been the chapter workshop every year, and member from our officer have been joining that workshop. And also we joined the ISOC event in the many internet meetings, and Atlas IETF to member of from our officer joining the engagement meeting in the Bangkok. This is IETF, and also we have been joining the ISOC event in the ICANN or Apricot meeting, and so on. Okay, next please. So this is almost the last slide, and this is our work plan of this year. And this year we plan to have the ISOC JP workshops several times. We had been holding the ISOC JP workshop, but last year we cannot hold that meeting. So this year we restart this workshop, and we plan to have that once every 2 months. And also we will have the IETF update meeting after the IETF on that meeting, and also get together and the operation of ISOC JP IETF Slack. We will continue to operate the ISOC JP Slack. And of course, we will collaborate with the internet-related organizations in Japan, and we will support many events in Japan. Okay. Next, please. And this is the last slide. And so if you have interest in the more detailed activities, you can see our activities from this web page, and also we have the Facebook and Twitter presence. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. And
okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's interesting, and you have a lot of activities around the IETF as well, which is interesting with the local gathering and everything. Do we have any questions? Hiroshi, please.
I may want to add some interesting or the topic. ISOC JP as well as Japanese people are fighting to the government action. He showed the issue of the blocking of copyright for illegal Japanese manga site. It was called by the Prime Minister in the April of last year. Then he ordered the blocking the site. So giant carrier entity group say they want to go to the blocking against those sites that is installed overseas. I mean the outside Japan. So internet people, getting up them saying that's not a good idea. We should not do. So about 10 months discussion, then finally we successfully stop the blocking by the order of the government. So now that the discussion is going to the next stage that came from the ministry who taking care of the copyright. So still we are trying to stop in those blocking by the order by the government. If the blocking would be initiated by the ISP, then the user have the right to rejecting those offer or not. So that is still we're working on those illegal site blocking issue that is not be able to solve within the single country Japan that is related with the global internet operation. And also because of the discussion was mainly focusing on the blocking by DNS. So that is strongly related with the infrastructure of the internet by the DNS, how the such a local regulation, affecting to the global infrastructure or operation. So that's always we are saying that is the important thing. We must maintain the structure of the internet for the global point of view, as well as the neutrality of the internet for every single service. Say the Japanese manga magazine site is just one of the example. So we should not change the operation by the single reason. So that is the other discussion we did, and still we are fighting with, or we are discussing that to the good resolution or good way. So that is the whole of the Japanese multi-stakeholder discussion we are trying to make it. And also during that discussion was initiated by the government. They try to make a small amount of stakeholders, not the whole of the stakeholders. So we said to the government, that is very bad, inadequate structure of the committee to making a policy. So that is, we successfully make such a point to the government. Then that committee itself is bad structure. That is not good for the making a regulation or rule in the government. So that kind of thing is, we always fighting too. That the other thing, 1 year we spending was about the consideration of the network neutrality discussion. That including the zero rating issue. So that has now reached into some consensus right now. So that is yet another, interesting or important discussion and activity related with the ISOC-JP as well as ISOC for that. The last one, that is quite, serious thing about probably we should discuss about that. That is Chinese issue. Especially Huawei and ZTE thing. We talk with the top government officers like the Prime Minister about that. Then the Japan should not say explicitly about Chinese vendor name or some particular country name. We want to have very safe, very secure internet, trustable internet. The data should across the national boundaries freely. Though how to making such a system or structure by the government as well as critical infrastructure, that is we must carefully discussing from the viewpoint of global point of view. So that is yet another still we are working on, because that is very critical stage now. So that is the other important topic we are facing too, and I want to share, and I want to hear how the Japan should speak out to the rest of the world, because that's very critical. And also we always saying from the technical point of view, because the government or congressman doesn't have good technical background data or information say the people who are whispering to the government people doesn't have enough knowledge, enough fact. So we are going to try to provide them real data, then how to reacting or how to announcing to the outside. So that is yet another important function. I believe we are technically experts, so we should talking to them from the viewpoint of the experience of real technical background as well as operational background. So that's the additional thing we are working in Japan.
Excellent. Thank you, Hiroshi. And I think we like that model of providing basically people with information and arguments so that they understand how things work, as you said, at the technical level. Yeah, thanks for the explanation. We have Walid as well.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and it's really impressive work. I was interested in learning how you are able to recruit new youth among your members. Do you see a trend of increasing or decreasing or steady growth in terms of bringing in new people? And because I can sense many of the chapters around the world, especially in terms of technical expertise in standardization, ITF, struggle in bringing in new people.
Hi, thank you so much for your question. And in that point, we try to reach to the university student or the high school student, and we have several workshops or lecture to them, and their content is how internet works or the internet management about that, and also try to communicate with young people from such kind of workshop and so on. However, at this stage, not so many young people have joined our activities, so we have to continue such activities to reach to the young people. Yes, this is current situation.
Thank you. I'm giving time for trustees if somebody else have any comments or questions. Okay.
This was good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. John was saying that this was a good presentation. Thank you. Okay. So thank you very much, Tomohiro. This was very useful to understand your activities. Also, Hiroshi's point about other activities going on in Japan. So keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you so much. And we, ISOC Japan chapter, really appreciate the ISOC support for their chapters. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Have a good day, Tomohiro.
Thank you.
Which brings us to the last topic of the day before we go into executive session, which is AOB.
About the committee updates.
Yes. I was going to take AOB, yeah, but you're right. It's better to take first the committee updates. So yeah, before we go to AOB, before we were basically discussing the updates to the charters. So Desiree sent an email to the list with the proposed amendments after our discussion. I went through them and I think they look good. Any further comments because we can approve them now. So the idea is to pass the resolution at this point. So I will give you 2 minutes to, yeah, okay. So I give you 2 minutes and then we do it. Okay. When you are done, raise your hand so I know who is missing. Okay, a few trustees missing. Okay, I see Walid and Hiroshi still working on it. Walid is done, so Hiroshi, when you are done. Okay, everybody's done. Any comments? I think it captures our conversations this morning. We had an offline discussion right before lunch with Harris, and I understood the agreement is like not to do anything. Is that okay with you, Harris? You want to take?
Well, okay. This got to do with the NOMCOM's charter review. And my earlier comment was about putting a timeline bar from time the person leaves the employment of ISOC, whether it's a full-time or contract, to be able to be on a NOMCOM in the first place. So my gut feel says that we need to put some kind of a time bar. Otherwise, the person can leave today and tomorrow be on the NOMCOM. And I'm not saying that there will be a situation, but it just seems to me that it's good practice probably to put a bar. So what the bar should be and what is the right number, I don't have a sense of it. But a reasonable one, which I think maybe is 3 months, and that's all. After which the person can come back in.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this too, and there are certainly lots of situations where you don't want the revolving door to revolve too fast. But given that the NOMCOM, if you're on the NOMCOM, you can't nominate yourself. That's already basically it's a year-long bar before self-dealing. And I think that the fact that you can't nominate yourself is probably enough of a gap that we don't have to add an extra gap.
Maybe I'm not thinking so much of self-nomination. I'm thinking about this, grand plan of someone doing some stuff as an employee, as a contractor within ISOC, and then knowing that he or she may step down to be on a NOMCOM, so that somehow influences the committee to, get someone to be selected, and hopefully that person gets selected. And that decision, kind of, I know it's stretching it, but all I'm asking for is putting a gap. That's it. Whether if we feel generally we shouldn't be worried about it, I think I'm okay with it. But I just feel that that's a loophole there, and
So I guess the question is that, like, the NOMCOM actually, I mean, the board appoints the NOMCOM. So if somebody is running and we have this, which I agree is a corner case, we can always say no, thank you. So is that enough? Because like I think in like 99.9% of the situations, this is, not an issue.
I think in good faith we should be okay with that. I mean, I think in good faith, I think we will do probably the right thing. But again, human nature being what it is, we may. But okay, the downside will be, okay, let's look at the flip side. By putting it in there, does it solve anything immediately? Does it prevent anything from happening? Can the process continue? I think all things considered, it's still workable, but not having a timeline in there, that does open up this opportunity. Right. That's all there is to it. I mean, if we collectively feel that's okay, then I will go with it.
Okay, so Sean and then Andrew.
I guess I just have this concern about, like, it's not enforceable in a court of law. There's some restrictions you have because you're an employee when you're not, screw it, whatever. I'm good. Like, if somebody really wanted to get on and make a hay out of this, do you want to go to court over this? I don't know.
Well, wouldn't that be still something that could be raised if for being asking someone to wait for a year before you can be on it? Couldn't that be enforced or challenged in court?
I mean, it could be if you want to include it in everyone's like exit contract, but I don't know if you'd want to do that. I mean, I think that there's been a chance where somebody who was an employee and then quickly was running to be on the board, right? They didn't get selected. This is different. This is saying that, like, somebody that was an employee is going to get on the nominations committee to get somebody else to get elected. We're starting to get in the real stretch phase. I mean, it's possible, but I think not probable. So therefore, I'm not sure that we need to put it in here, because I think there are other places where we can catch it to avoid this problem.
The reason that I would advise against this is the general principle that you shouldn't put rules in place if you don't have a clear reason why you want it. Because what it does is it limits your flexibility in the case where it turns out that you want that behavior. So I can totally imagine a case where you had a serious problem with populating the non-com 1 year, and you had somebody who had just retired, for instance, they understood the space and they understood all of that. And if you write this rule, you're not going to be able to use them. And that seems like a downside that is possible. That downside has to be weighed against the probability of collusion among essentially all of the board, plus whoever this is who is willing to quit a remunerated job in order to take a volunteer job in order possibly to appoint somebody to the board in the future, which seems like a low probability. Because after all, I mean, the non-com doesn't actually appoint anybody. What they appoint is a slate of people who are maybe then picked by other people. And that feels to me like I mean, I understand what the risk is. I can see potential collusion there, but it seems like a low probability, and the non-zero probability of wanting somebody who like somehow fit that corner case is also there. And so now I'm nervous about a rule that, you know, you could actually avoid needing the rule in the first place. In general, I think there are a number of cases where the existing rules do not protect against much worse collusion than this, right? There's no rule, for instance, against a board member leaving the board and then immediately becoming an executive team member of the Internet Society, which seems like a way bigger conflict of interest. And yet that's one that we don't have a rule against. So in general, it feels to me like it's dangerous to make rules that you don't have a very clear use case for.
I think we have heard all the arguments, and I mean, we could go one way or the other. Let's take a straw poll, quick straw poll, and we do whatever. So who would be in favor of not adding the time, basically, period that?
So just leave it as it is.
Leave it as it is. So who would be in favor of that? Okay, so I guess this kind of consensus. Okay, no, but thanks, because I think it's good to think of all the conflict of interest and make sure that we are covering that. Okay, good. So then any other comments before we try to pass the resolution? Okay, so I need someone to move the resolution. So Olga moves. Yeah, so Sean moves, Olga seconds. It's just like they are in my blind spot when I'm looking at you guys. So I really like Hans-Peter and Sean. I don't see them. Well, it's not that they don't exist, but okay. So with that, we're gonna do a show of hands again, and again, you know, yes, no, and abstain. So yes votes, no votes, abstention. Okay, so the resolution passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. That was good. And again, thanks, Sean and Desiree and the whole GovCom. Okay, so with that, now we really go into any other business. So any other business before we go into executive session? I see people. No. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna close the meeting until tomorrow at 9 o'clock local time. And no, so Kevin is telling me. Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. So we resume tomorrow in executive session as well. So the open session will start at 10:45. Okay, yeah. Thanks for the clarification. So anyone following remotely or in the room for this matter, we will be resuming in open session tomorrow at 10:45 local time in Kobe.